Hello, I'm Sensei Alex Kakio. Thank you for joining me this evening for meditation and sutra study. This evening's practice will consist of a 15-minute guided meditation, a reading from a sutra, followed by a Dharma talk. The title of today's talk will be Simplicity in Being Our Authentic Self. Before we get into that, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you'll be notified when I post talks in the future. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that'd be great too. So, as we prepare ourselves for our guided meditation, I'll give you a moment to get into position. The only rule is that you need to be in a position that's comfortable and that you can hold for at least 15 minutes without moving. If you want to lay down, that's fine. I just ask that you don't fall asleep. If you'd like some instruction, what I like to do is sit cross-legged either on the floor or on a cushion. Back straight, chin slightly tucked. Left hand goes palm up in the lap. Right hand goes palm up over the left. And we'll begin our meditation very simply by breathing in and out through the nose. Inhaling and then exhaling through the nose engages the parasympathetic portion of our nervous system, causes feelings of calm and relaxation to come over our bodies. Next, on every inhale, we poke out the belly button slightly like we've just had a big meal. And we relax on the exhale. Finally, if we're not sure what to do with our thoughts, we bring our focus to the physical sensations of our breathing. The feeling of air moving up and down our throats. The feeling of our diaphragm expanding and contracting. We'll breathe in this way for about 2 minutes. I'll keep time. No need to worry about that. And if our mind wanders, that's okay. We simply say hello to our thoughts and bring our focus back to the physical sensations of our breath. Great work. Keep breathing. Now we'll add a visualization to our meditative exercise. We'll visualize a fire burning in our belly in the space behind our belly button. If our favorite color is blue, the fire is blue. If we like green, the fire is green. And this fire is burning like a fire in the woods. And just like we would with a campfire, we're going to use our breath to feed the fire oxygen to make it bigger and brighter. This fire represents our spiritual power, our own enlightened nature. So with every inhale, we breathe in through the nose, filling our lungs with air. With every exhale, we visualize ourselves blowing on the fire as we breathe out through our nose, feeding it oxygen, making it bigger and brighter with every breath. We breathe in, we bring air into our lungs, we breathe out, we blow on the fire of our enlightenment, building the spiritual power within ourselves. We'll breathe in this way for about 2 minutes. I'll keep time. No need to worry about that. Wonderful. Keep breathing. Every week there's a wonderful energy when we sit together like this. It's always nice to be with Sangha. And now we'll build on that energy by visualizing a pipeline going from our belly all the way down to the center of the earth. And when we get to the center of the earth, we find an energy there that's identical to our own. If the fire in our belly is red, the earth's energy is red. If the fire in our belly is orange, the earth's energy is orange. 2,600 years ago, Buddha reached down to the earth in order to realize enlightenment. And now we'll do the same. With every inhale, we visualize energy coming up from the earth until it reaches the fire in our belly, merging with it and amplifying it. And with every exhale, we visualize ourselves blowing on that fire, making it even bigger and even brighter. We inhale through the nose and pull energy up from the earth to our belly, merging it with our spiritual power. And with every exhale through the nose, we blow on that fire, making it bigger and brighter still. We'll breathe in this way for about a minute. I'll keep time. Wonderful. Everyone's sitting so quietly, so still, supporting each other in their practice. Now we'll continue by setting up a second pipeline, this one going from our belly, up, 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 all the way to the top of our heads. So we have the fire of our enlightenment in our belly. We have one pipeline going from our belly down to the center of the earth. And the second going from our belly to the tops of our head. With every inhale, we breathe in through the nose, pulling energy up into our belly, blending it with our own spiritual power. With every exhale, we push that energy up, up, up out the tops of our heads until it explodes like a volcano, covering every inch of us in healing spiritual light. So again, inhale through the nose, pulling energy up from the center of the earth, merging it with our own spiritual energy in our belly. With every exhale, we push that energy up, out the tops of our heads, covering ourselves with enlightenment. We struggled so much throughout the week. So many tiny hardships, and this is our chance to send healing wherever it's needed. From the bottoms of our feet all the way to the top of our head. We'll breathe in this way for about a minute. I'll keep time. And if our mind wanders, that's okay. We simply say hello to our thoughts and bring our focus back to our breathing and to the visualization. Great work. Now it's time to bring our meditation to a close. We'll begin by closing off the energy channel going from our belly to the tops of our head, pushing the energy down until it barely reaches our throat, barely reaches our solar plexus, and finally it stops right there in our belly with every breath. Then we do the same with the energy channel going down to the center of the earth. Perhaps we give the earth a silent bow, thanking her for supporting us in our practice. Finally, we take a moment to notice this fiery energy in our belly. The transformative enlightenment that's always with us whenever we need to call upon it. But for now, we allow the visualization to fade until there's only our breathing. And slowly we come back into our bodies, rotating our shoulders forward. And back. Slowly, gently alternating until finally they hang gently towards the floor. And then we move our heads to the left and to the right, back and forth, feeling the physical sensations in our neck. So finally we come back to center. And if our eyes are closed, when we're ready, and only when we're ready, we open them. I'll give you about 30 seconds to do that. Thank you for sitting with me. I appreciate you supporting me in my practice, and I hope I was able to support you as well this evening. Tonight's sutra reading comes from a book entitled The Center Within by Reverend Guillaume M. Kabose. Not necessary to have a copy of the text, but it can be useful if you'd like to follow along with the reading. Tonight's reading comes from page 33, and it's entitled Simplicity. Buddhism means to learn simplicity. Life is simple and therefore beautiful. It's just as birds sing and flowers bloom, very natural, very simple. Life should not be analyzed. The intellect analyzes, but analysis and intellectualization will not bring peace to life, will not bring enlightenment. Enlightenment is the direct, intuitive knowing of who one is. This is Buddhism. All the teachings can be reduced to know yourself. To know oneself is to know that this very self is constantly changing. Life is a continuous becoming. It is not something you possess. Realizing this, you live a new life each day. Live life directly and simply. A flower is beautiful because it blooms without pretension, without artificiality. Blooming is reality. Blooming is life. Blooming is the means and the end. This is how it should be in your life too. This reminds me of a question someone asked Picasso. Why do you paint in such a way? It is so hard to understand. Picasso replied, "Don't ask me. Ask the bird why it sings." Why do birds sing? Why do flowers bloom? Why does rain fall? It is life's expression. Life is like a spring gushing forth from within the earth. From the bottom of life, continuous new life springs out. So simple, so clean. Live this pure life. Drink at this spring of life and live accordingly, without pretension, without artificiality. It is this kind of simplicity that Buddhism teaches. So, what is simplicity? What is Reverend Guillaume getting at when he talks about living life without pretension? Well, to understand that, what comes up to my mind is a poem that was written by Reverend Guillaume's teacher, Reverend Haya Ikegarasu. And there is specifically one line in the poem that always gets to me. He says, "My feelings are my feelings. They are never myself." What does that mean? Well, what Reverend Haya Akagarasu is speaking to, and what Reverend Guillaume Kabose is also speaking to, is the relationship between duality and non-duality in life. Sometimes in Buddhism, this is referred to as the relationship between form and emptiness. And what this means simply is if we imagine ourselves on a beach that is infinitely long and infinitely wide and covered with countless individual sandcastles. Each sandcastle is unique. They appear to be separate, but there's a relationship there because they're all made of sand. More than that, if we look at the beach itself, we realize that this beach, even though it's not a sandcastle, even though it is without form, so to speak, it is also made of that same sand. So even though they appear separate on the surface, the fact is each sandcastle is connected And each sandcastle is connected not only to the other castles, but also to the beach. So we have the duality that exists of each individual sandcastle. We also have the non-duality that exists in the beach. They are separate, and at the same time, they are one and the same. In fact, we could say that each sandcastle, in its own unique individual expression, is a manifestation of the beach itself, because they were formed from the sand of the beach, and when they disappear, they return back to that beach. This is the relationship between form and emptiness, between the relative and the absolute. What Reverend Haya Ikegarasu is saying when he says, "My feelings are my feelings, they are never myself," is that we exist as individual sandcastles. But that's not the whole story. We are also part of an infinitely large, infinitely wide beach, known as the Buddha body. Thus, the duality of our everyday life exists within the non-duality of the Buddha body. So what does this have to do with Reverend Gyome's teaching? What does this have to do with living a simple, authentic life? Well, what Reverend Gyome is getting at is the pretension, the artificiality we exhibit in our daily life comes from the fact that we see ourselves only as individuals. We don't see ourselves as part of a larger whole. And because we think we are individuals and only individuals, we feel the need to compete against one another. Is my sandcastle as good as that sandcastle over there? Is my life as good as my neighbor's life? Am I successful enough? Am I attractive enough? Am I smart enough? This is the thinking that comes if we only see ourselves as individuals. But if we see ourselves as part of the same beach, the same Buddha body, all of that goes away. There's no need to compete, and we simply live our lives as fully as we possibly can. What would your life be like if you stopped comparing yourself to others? Another way to think of this teaching is to imagine the organs of the human body. The heart is different from the lungs are different from the brain. They have very different functions. The heart pumps blood. The brain fires off neurons to make our muscles move. The lungs move oxygen into our bodies and removes carbon dioxide. They are all different. But they don't compete with each other because they understand they are part of the same human body. So if I were to tell you I like my heart more than I like my lungs, well, you'd look at me strangely. Because what's the point of making that comparison? The lungs have a job to do, the heart has a job to do, and we need both. More than that, all of our organs know that they have a job to do, that they are part of a larger whole, so they don't compare themselves to each other. They simply fulfill their natural function. The heart pumps blood, the lungs move air, the brain fires off neurons, and in fulfilling their natural function to the best of their ability, the whole human body is better off as a result. The heart does nothing outside of pumping blood. That's the only thing it's good for. But if our heart stopped pumping blood, our lungs will never fire off neurons to make our muscles move the way our brain does. But if our lungs stopped moving air in and out of our body, The understanding that we are all part of a singular Buddha body is the understanding that we don't need to try so hard. The fact that we exist is proof that we are an integral piece of the puzzle. In the same way that our heart exists solely because we cannot live without it. We have nothing to prove. We have nothing to do outside of the performance of our own natural function. Flowers understand this. That's why when it's time for flowers to bloom, they bloom with their full ability. There's no comparison to their neighbors. The daffodil doesn't try to be the rose doesn't try to be the sunflower. They simply live out their own authentic self, their own natural self, to the best of their ability, because they know that's all they have to do. They know that if they simply live as who and what they are, the entire natural world will be better as a result. And it's the same with us. We don't need to put on airs. We don't need any pretenses. We simply need to live as who and what we are. If we're a school teacher, the best thing we can do for the world is to be the best teacher we can be. If we're a truck driver, the best thing we can do to end suffering for all sentient beings is to be the best truck driver we can be. That's why in Buddhism, sometimes when we're asked, what's the purpose of life? Well, we turn the question back on the questioner. What are you doing in this moment? Whatever you're doing right now is exactly what you need to be doing. Nothing more, nothing less. Trees understand this. That's why now that it's fall and it's time for some of the trees to drop their leaves, they do it without question. They don't wonder what they'll look like naked without their leaves. They don't compare themselves to others. They simply, it's time to drop my leaves, so I do it. That's my purpose in this moment. And it's the same with us. This is a lesson I personally had to learn early in my own practice. I found that I always wanted to be somewhere else besides where I was. I was never satisfied. If I was at work, I wanted to be at home. If I was at home, I wanted to be at the gym. If I was at the gym, I wanted to be out with friends. Living this natural, authentic life is simple. But it's also very difficult because as human beings, we have defilements. We have greed, anger, and ignorance, the three poisons, and they all come from desire. Now, this word desire is very interesting. It actually comes from a word called tanha, which more literally translates to unquenchable thirst. So we, as human beings, have an unquenchable thirst, an unquenchable desire, meaning that no matter what we have, we will always want more. This is why you have people in the world who have billions of dollars, literally more than they could spend in 100 lifetimes, and yet you're still trying to accumulate more. That's why we buy a new car and we like it for about 6 months, and then the new car smell wears off, and suddenly we start looking at the car a neighbor is driving. We wonder if we need to upgrade next year. We have tanha. We have an unquenchable thirst. And this isn't anything to be ashamed of. It's simply part of our human existence, but it's something we need to be aware of, because it's tanha, it's desire, that stops us from living an authentic life, that causes us to compare ourselves to others. Are my clothes nice enough? Is my house big enough? Now, as I said, tanha, desire, is a natural part of life, but it's not something that we can't do anything about. The human body has a natural function, but human bodies get sick sometimes. And because we know what it is to breathe correctly, then we are able to recognize when we have congestion, let's say, when we're coughing. And we know what to do about that. We know that if I have to cough, I sneeze into my elbow instead of spraying my spit and mucus all over the place. If it gets really bad, we might get some cough medicine. So we have a benchmark. We know what a healthy human body looks like, so we know what an unhealthy body looks like, and we know what medicine to use to make our bodies healthy again. Living our natural, authentic life, living our Buddha life, works in exactly the same way. Reverend Manshi Kiyozawa described the qualities of Buddha, the larger Buddha body that we are all a part of, as being infinite wisdom, infinite compassion, and infinite power. So we can use that as our marker. We can use our mindfulness, practicing right mindfulness, which is part of the Noble Eightfold Path, to look at our minds, look at our actions, and figure out, am I acting in accordance with my natural Buddha self? Am I acting out in a way that's in keeping with wisdom, that's in keeping with compassion? And if we're not, that's fine. Buddhas get sick sometimes, but the medicine is the Dharma. That's why we read the sutras. That's why we engage in bowing and meditative practices. That's why we give offerings. Because we have this unquenchable thirst within us. Just like we have germs in our natural world, and sometimes it gets the best of us. It causes us to act inauthentically. It causes us to act in greed, in anger, and ignorance, which is not in keeping with our own true natural Buddha self. So when those feelings pop up, there's no need to feel guilt. We just need to take our medicine. In the same way that if we get a cold, we don't feel bad about getting the cold. We just take our medicine. That's what Buddhism is. It's a medicine for that unquenchable thirst so that we can live our natural, authentic lives. Lives free of greed, lives free of anger, lives free of ignorance. Lives that allow our own Buddha nature to shine forth fully in everyday life. Without pretension, without artificiality. Just us. Thus, the point of Buddhism isn't fancy enlightenment experiences or the denigration of our ordinary everyday lives. Quite the opposite. According to Reverend Gyome Kabose, the purpose of Buddhism is to help us live our normal, ordinary lives more fully. With the understanding that just like the heart supports the human body by simply fulfilling its natural function, we support the larger Buddha body simply by living out our ordinary everyday lives. Each time we cut the grass, each time we wash dishes, each time we pick up the kids from daycare, we are making the world a better, more enlightened place. And the only thing that's required of us is to be us, with the understanding that in reality, there's nothing outside of us to begin with. Amitabha. So, that's the talk for today. I hope it was helpful. Please make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you'll be notified when I post talks in the future. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that'd be great too. And we'll just end with a few announcements. So this was Meditation and Sutra Study. We do it every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, broadcast from this channel. And every Sunday, we do something slightly less involved. We do Dharma Sunday, which is me taking something from pop culture or the news and speaking on it from a Buddhist perspective, giving a Dharma talk, tying canonical Buddhist teachings with daily life. So, I hope to see you there. Until next time, Amitabha.